nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
We're back. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. I hope you're all well. I'm Craig Manson. I'm hosting tonight, and it's been an interesting summer, and we've had a bit of a break. We've had a couple of podcasts in the middle of it, which some fantastic gentlemen have been looking after, and we've had a couple of Patreon podcasts. A couple of wee podcasts here and there, but we are back now for the latest season, as it's about to get underway as of this weekend. So we thought we'd better get started and say hello. Thank you for joining us, and joining us tonight is the man himself. Also got a bit of a white shirt on, and he was away learning how to be a racist earlier on. Was that what it is? Are you starting to paint your roundabouts in Fruki? Jonny McGinty, how you doing?
Literally the opposite, actually. And I've decided to what my class would call up my riz this year and start wearing a shirt to work occasionally. So you've caught me on a shirt day.
And also the original Inverness throbbing purple monster is poking up here in my view. Alan McDonald, how you doing?
I'm very well, Craig. I'm not sure I'll recover from that introduction.
You realise that this is an audio format. No one knows he's got that purple top.
It's nobody
on, right?
get to see the video that he's got his purple shirt on. So
I did invite people to the live stream, so maybe someone might see the pink pony prop.
It looks like there's four viewers, but that might just be the bots that are watching us. So you never know. So how are you doing, gentlemen? How's your summer been? And I know you've had a couple of pods during the summer, but how's your summer been, Jonny?
Yeah, good. Busy as usual. Went away on holiday with the kids. Went away on holiday with myself. Did a bit of rugby coaching. Back at work, feels like I've never been away. So no, it's been all right. Plenty of rugby to watch over the summer, so that's always nice.
Absolutely. And Alan, have you relaxed and had some time to yourself?
I have indeed. And my son has started playing rugby again, which means the cricket season is finished. So I now have swapped watching him play cricket on a Sunday for watching him play rugby on a Sunday. At least I know a bit more about rugby.
Did you have the 4-week overlap that we had, where it was we had cricket training on a Friday night, rugby training on a Sunday morning, then every second Sunday you had to choose between his rugby match and his cricket match?
No, we haven't had that. I think rugby wasn't getting a look in until cricket had finished, but I'm driving him through to Huntly every Monday night for winter net, so that's a 3.5 hour round trip. So and nothing to do in Huntly.
Look at Manson with his grown-up child, captain of Stirling Uni second 15. By the way, don't think I didn't notice that.
Oh,
and he's
superb.
Just like Manson's rubbed his hands of any sort of having to drive anybody anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
gleefully on.
That's funnily enough. It's I was speaking to David from the Scrum of the Earth today because he was we were going to try and do a UFC preview, and I couldn't take part because it's the first time I've actually had some pressure on me to do something, because I was working late last night and unfortunately missed going to Nando's with Darcy, who's just turned 16. And so we're having a special steak and chips night tonight in honour of her birthday, so that I could spend some time with her. But it's been an odd summer for me, actually. It's we've as you guys have all known, it's been a bit difficult over the summertime. So it's great to just get back and not to be thinking about anything other than a bit of rugby and having a good chat with my pals. So it's really good to be back. Our podcast, well, you're welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. We are brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. Our podcast is part of the Sport Social Network, and so don't forget to give us a follow or a like on your favourite podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to give us a follow on social media, where you will probably find that Jonny is at the helm upsetting the Welsh. You can find all the links on our site, www.scottishrugbyblog.co.uk, and there's been some really good articles written. In fact, I think there's one from a certain Johnny McGinty as well, Alan, is there not? On the blog site, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I know. It's like he's spreading his knowledge not only to the children of Fife, but also to everyone else with rugby.
Point of order.
Your face.
I'm not just winding up the Welsh anymore. The Irish and the South Africans are getting it as well.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. If you're listening on Apple and like what we do, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like more content and want to support what we do, we do this section, and then we move on to our Patreon section. You can subscribe to our Patreon from just £3 a month, and that gives you access to our super secret Facebook group in the second part of tonight's podcast, as well as Patreon exclusives, and also the well-documented Hands in the Ruck. So we will see how we get on. So we'll better rattle on, guys, because I know for a fact that at 40 minutes I've got to, Rory will get antsy if I don't get it to 40 minutes and get it all edited right. So we'll move on. There's been a few bits and pieces of news over the time that we've kind of been on and off over the summer. First nice bit of news is Holly Davidson is refereeing the World Cup final. That's pretty damn good for Holly, and not that I'm saying she should actually be reffing any international game. No, it doesn't have to be just the women's game, but the World Cup final is pretty good, Johnny.
Yeah, excellent, and nobody more deserving of it than her. We might come on to it during the World Cup review, but for this to be such a great advert for women's rugby and the most watched Women's Rugby World Cup and all the great things that have happened, I think quite a few people are perhaps fairly taking aim at the standard of officiating, and Holly has once again this tournament been head and shoulders above the rest. So a well-deserved final for her, and like you say, hopefully we'll see her in more and more high-profile games the next couple of years.
Yeah, and Alan, did she not referee the World Cup final in New Zealand?
I think that's right.
Second person in history to referee too.
Yeah, second person to do so.
Is that when England got beat?
She sent someone off. There was a lot of very upset English people that there was a Scottish person refereeing the World Cup final and someone correctly got sent off. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Yeah,
well, moving on from us upsetting all of our neighbours, Glasgow have been a bit busy over the summertime. Not only have they signed a few players, but Franco Smith has extended his stay for another 2 years. Al Kellock leaves to become involved with the pathway. I've forgotten exactly what his my notes didn't go as far as telling me what he's actually going to do.
High performance director, I think.
High performance director, yeah. And then Kenny Brown is moving up from the sort of the management side of Glasgow Warriors up to the big job. So Glasgow fairly doing a fair few bits of manoeuvring around, Alan.
Absolutely. I think we should be calling Al Kellock and his new post the new Sephora, NEW Sephora. Johnny, that's a pound in the pun jar.
Yeah,
sorry.
You're damn right.
At the end of the month, we'll send it to My Name's Doddy. We'll just keep a tally.
And Jonny, as a fully fledged Beach, your thoughts on Franco Smith staying?
I think we all know the answer to that. I could not be happier. Glasgow continued to get better under Franco. All the noise out of the team the last couple of weeks suggests that they're confident they're going to get better again. He's got the squad ticking in a way that nobody's had for a very long time. So, yeah, overjoyed. Great piece of business as far as I'm concerned.
Moving down the M8 or across the M8, there's not a massive amount of news coming out of Edinburgh at the moment. They've not even announced the team for Saturday at the moment. But Magnus Bradbury has been announced as Edinburgh captain for the second time. I really, he does. If young Mr. Anderson was here, he would be saying something rude about Magnus Bradbury at some point. I can hear him all the way from Tbilisi telling us, saying something about Magnus Bradbury. But I really think it's someone who deserves his second chance at captain, and I think he's going to do a good job. But looking from the outside in, Jonny, your thoughts on Magnus being announced as Edinburgh captain? And I would rather not talk about his original captaincy time.
See, it's a tricky one. Obviously, without talking about it, it wasn't the most successful or perhaps glowing part of his career. But coming back, I actually don't know who the other outstanding candidates at Edinburgh are. So I think he's probably a worthwhile bet. I think, he's going to be a main part of the squad for the majority of the year. I think, you don't want to say this about somebody before the season's even started, but looking at the back row position, he'd be a very outside bet to be away with Scotland for any point of the season. So he's going to be around with Edinburgh. He's an experienced player. He's well known. He's obviously well liked. I think he's the sensible pick.
Absolutely. And Alan, your thoughts on Magnus as captain?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a second chance that he might not have thought he was going to get. So I quite like that for people, because he's presumably got something. I would imagine he feels he's got something to prove in this role. He's older and a bit wiser. As Jonny says, at the moment, it doesn't look like he'll be away for Scotland, but he might have the opportunity to influence that. So I think he's got quite a lot to fuel him in the role, and that could be quite good for Edinburgh.
Yeah, I think definitely the trip down to Bristol for 2 years has definitely made it, matured him, and I believe he's just got married over the summertime as well. So congratulations, Maggie and Mrs. Maggie. It's great for him, and I think that's just going to help him mature a bit more and really get into the role. I think,
unlike a lot of people,
absolutely heinous looking rugby weddings over the summer. By the way, we'll maybe save that for the Patreon half.
Yeah.
Some of the get up. Oh my word.
But I think, unlike a lot of signings for Edinburgh or re-signings for Edinburgh that we complained about, Bradley didn't come back with his tail between his legs. He came back as having made a success of himself at Bristol and having been a good member of the squad. And I think that's very different to a lot of the re-signings that we've moaned about for Edinburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of left this last bit of news because it's going to drift into part of the conversation that we're going to have about the World Cup. But first of all, Lisa Coburn, Katie Mattinson and Jade Conkle have all retired from international rugby after the end of the World Cup. 3 players, especially Jade Conkle, who are going to be missed dramatically from the Scotland squad. This all comes along with the news just yesterday or today. Was it this morning or was it yesterday?
This morning.
It was this morning, actually. That the SRU have finally confirmed that they have given out 35 contracts for the 25-26 season. 17 full contracts within the PWR and the French League with players who are playing within PWR and French leagues. 11 full contracts for players playing in Scotland, 7 development contracts, and 15 further emerging players supported by SRU, which means they're getting to use the gym. So an interesting one. I think, Jonny, we were going to talk a little bit about it, but you made a fairly salient point. And if you want to make it now, you're quite welcome to, about maybe coming back and talking about it later.
Yeah, I think on the face of it, seems like good news. I think it's worth waiting to see what it actually looks like before we sort of dissect it properly. I am curious about the timing of it. I think now is the time that we should be celebrating a really quite successful World Cup. I think that's what we kind of want to be talking about. I think some of the retiring players are probably related to the contract situation. And I would personally like to see what these contracts actually look like and how they're going to support the players involved. On the face of it, seems like good news. I think it's more than we expected, but a little bit more detail I think we need to see before we can kind of delve into it properly.
Yeah, and Alan, I think, looking at them, one of my disappointments really is the fact of the term. As in, it's for the 25-26 season. It doesn't seem to be, what's the word? For me, I'm sorry, but there's no men's rugby player getting a single year contract or a rolling, having to reapply for their job at the end of every season. So I'm finding that difficult to swallow. But yeah, yourself looking at the contracts, and also a little bit of a couple of words about Jade Conkle, because she's obviously ex-Highland player, etc.
I think it's good that there are more players supported. I am a little cynical about it, just because there's been more players supported, but they haven't actually spoken about an increased investment. And I wonder if some of the retiring players have been on more money and that's been used to recycle for emerging players. I don't know. But whatever the circumstances of Jade Conkle leaving international rugby, Jade has been an absolutely fantastic servant for Scotland, who has left a number of jerseys in a better place than they were when she found them. And it was a pleasure and a privilege to watch her play. So, I think she's been absolutely fantastic and will be sorely missed.
Yeah, very much so. I remember meeting her at one of the very short amount of times I went, or the very small amount of times I went to Scotstoun, and she'd just been announced as Scotland's first ever women contract, and we then met up again at the Silver Saturday finals announcement. And all the captains there were all from all the teams that were playing in the cup finals, and just at that time, which is 10, 11, 12 years ago, she was just an athlete, and she just absolutely came across as an absolute athlete, fantastic representation for the game. Someone you have to put aside men and women's rugby in Scotland for Jade Conkle. Jade Conkle was an amazing servant for Scottish rugby, and absolutely we'll talk about it now, because I may as well talk about it now. But because I'm not going to get too het up about it. But for someone who was playing at such a high level, to still have to have a second job and be a firefighter, and she went through her firefighter training and also then became a fully fledged firefighter in London while still holding down the jersey for Scotland. That must take an amazing amount of work and focus, etc. So just as you say, Alan, I can only back you up. An amazing servant for Scottish rugby, and she has left Scottish rugby in a far better place. Good luck to Jade and all the other retirees in their future. So we'll move on to the World Cup. Scotland went into the World Cup looking quite fresh, looking like they were ready for the World Cup. And I think, I'll go through quickly the fixtures and what happened through it. I'll just quickly 38-8 against Wales, putting Wales well and truly in their box. 29-15 to Fiji against Fiji. Then they lost 19-40 against Canada, and then 8-40 against England in the quarterfinal. However, they had qualified for the quarterfinals, which I don't know if that was a first, Johnny, but it was certainly they were, going against, especially, Fiji in their time, Johnny. That would be a game they could lose, along with the Welsh game actually. But the Fiji game is one of those ones that they could have easily have lost.
Yeah, and it was I don't know, it was a weird one because what seemed like a real statement win in the first week against Wales, very quickly you saw Wales again and you were a bit like, oh, actually maybe that's just how people are going to beat on Wales this tournament. Fiji was totally different, and actually I thought that was one of the more impressive performances from Scotland, because how could I be diplomatic about this? Fiji were rotten animals, essentially, and Scotland found themselves on the back end of some very questionable tackles, some fairly interesting breakdown work, and in a sort of way that Scottish teams haven't traditionally done, just sort of fronted up, got their hands dirty alongside them, and kind of kept them at arm's length. So it was a real test, that one, and I thought Scotland were quite impressive in the way, not just in the way that they met it, but the way they sort of adapted as well to make sure that they sort of imposed themselves on the game. So yeah, that was it was a real potential banana skin. I thought they did really well.
Yeah, and Alan, I think, looking at their defence has really impressed me over the last wee while. But that Wales game, Wales did okay, fair enough. Johnny has kind of admitted that Wales have been honking this World Cup, but they did throw everything in the kitchen sink at Scotland.
So I think actually there's a sliding doors moment in that game where that defensive set that Scotland had, on their own line, certainly in their own 22 at the end of the first half, had Wales managed to score there, we'd have seen a very different game, and one we as Scotland fans are all too familiar with. The one where it's nip and tuck and we ease ahead and we win, but we really, Wales have got closer than they should have done. I genuinely think that this was a Wales team that were very clear that if they were going to qualify, they had to beat Scotland. So they were throwing everything at that game. I think subsequent games are more difficult to judge because really the game was, the qualification was gone after the loss to Scotland, realistically. Because we certainly felt that if we lost to Wales, we weren't going to get to the quarterfinals. So having watched a lot of Scotland teams, men and women, sort of like concede that try and then have it a bit close and a bit nip and tuck, that defensive set, and similarly the one at the end where they were just like, no, you're not going to score. We're not going to give in, I thought was great. The Fiji game, yeah, I thought the defence was excellent there, and particularly in the face of some provocation. So I would agree with Johnny with that.
And standout players, Johnny. I've got a couple that I've kind of looked at, but I think they're probably going to be, along similar lines. But anyone to stand out for you that really are displaying world class talent?
Yeah, I mean the headline's going to be Fran McGee in her first World Cup to kind of score like she did. The finishing instinct that she's got is outrageous. For me, though, I think the two who really stood out over all the games would be Evie Gallagher and Emma Orr. I thought the lines that Emma Orr runs in attack in particular are fearsome, absolutely incredible. She just seems to have a knack for the right angle and the right time. The amount of line breaks that she had is up there with some of the very top performers in the tournament, and Evie Gallagher is just ridiculously abrasive with the ball or without it. I thought she was quite unlucky at points. Saying that, going back to her yellow card against Canada, it was actually a lot more obvious than it looked to begin with. But she is a traditional sort of back row who plays right on the very edge of that, and you are occasionally going to get busted. So I think that's the sort of hard edge that all of the Scotland teams have always needed. So I thought she was incredible. And Emma Orr in attack in particular was out of this world. She'll be on the Lions tour, I would hope.
Yeah, and Alan, that was my next question. I definitely, for me, Evie Gallagher has really stood out, and I would say she's got a very, very good chance of going on a Lions tour. But anyone else stand out for you?
I think it's difficult because Johnny's picked all the ones I would have picked.
Yeah, and I've got exactly the three there. I've got exactly those three written down in my book as well.
But I really like how Lisa Thompson has gone from a 10 to a very, very good 12. She's kept the skills of a 10 and added the sort of like line breaking ability of a 12 and the ball carrying, which I genuinely think has makes her game very impressive. So maybe not standing out, but I really like the role she's taken on in the team.
Yeah, but the thing is, sorry,
not to like bust on about the thing that we always complain about, but consider that she's getting absolutely no support in that area. I thought Lisa Thompson's touch finders in particular got Scotland out of bother a couple of times in this tournament. Yeah. She was making good distance on penalties. She was clearing the ball well when Scotland were under pressure, and nobody's helping her. She's not getting specialist kicking support, and she's basically doing that herself. So I thought that was worth a mention.
And that's what one of the things I was going to mention as well is for example, Fran McGee is scoring the tries. She's scoring because the hands have been far better from Scotland. They're no longer what I would call pedestrian, which I thought they were before. They're running, they're moving with the ball far better, and they look dangerous. And again, Emma Orr, just a quick word on Emma Orr. Not only does she have everything that Johnny's just talked about, but she can drop a ball on her foot and put a ball through for Fran McGee as well to chase onto. She's for me, I think she's actually, and it's weird because she's playing a totally different position to him, but she's a Damien Pinot for me. She's got that same sort of run to him. It looks almost like she's going incredibly slow when she's going incredibly fast, and she looks like she's really relaxed about it all. But she's actually doing things that are quite amazing. So yeah, I can only agree more. I can't agree more with you guys. Those three stood out very well. One thing I will do is mention Molly Pullman. She came on and actually her scrummaging was fantastic. Well, to me, looked very, very good. I wasn't watching it live. I had to go back and watch it again. But on the urging of Johnny McGinty, and she's done great. It's great to see Adele Ferry as well. These are obviously closer to my heart than a lot of other players, so I'm saying no more. I'll not talk about it anymore. But it's great to see them. Molly Pullman is really one for the future.
Molly's carrying is outrageous.
Yeah.
Craig and I were at the very first Women's 1872, which I think was Molly's one of her earlier like top level senior games, coming off the bench for Edinburgh. And when she came off the bench, I remember watching her first couple of carries and thinking, "Oh my word!" And it's continued at that level, and she brought it into the World Cup as well. You're not going to get a higher level of competition than that. And Molly did not take a backward step when she was carrying the ball, especially tight off of the breakdowns. She is a force to stop. She'll be an interesting one to watch.
That actually ties into the point I was going to make. I think we've spoken about the backs, and they're what gives Scotland the X factor, etc. But the reason the backs are looking less pedestrian is the forwards are generally getting better ball up front than they were before and getting more go forward. Because it's easier for the backs to look good if they're coming off front football.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Johnny, will Brian Easton be missed?
I think that depends a lot on who comes in next. I think Brian's done a power of work with Scotland. You get the impression that Scotland were still improving under Brian and could still continue to improve under Brian, which we can't necessarily say about the senior men's team. If they get in the right person to carry on what he's been doing and take it a step forward, I think that'll be a great move for Scotland. But if they don't make the right appointment, I can see them at best stagnating and at worst going a bit backwards. So there is a really good chance that we are sitting here this time at the end of the Six Nations and saying we wish we still had Brian Eason.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and I think Alan, Brian came in just when they started going professional as well. But the work he seems to have done with them, they are with a mixture of different coaches coming in behind them to work on skills, etc. But he really has driven them forward, and he has to be praised for that.
Absolutely, and I will hold my hands up. I thought a while back that he'd kind of plateaued a bit, and I've been waiting for an opportunity to say in the pod that I was wrong, because I think this has been a big step forward at this World Cup. It's a shame that the reward for qualifying for the quarterfinals was getting to face England, but that's just the vagaries of the draw. So I think that Eason's been great.
Yeah, it really has. So where do we go from here, Johnny?
I mean, hopefully we see these 35 contracts being used properly. We see that it's the investment that we need. We get in a coach who can carry on what Brian's done. I honestly think if we'd had France in the quarterfinals, we'd have had a really good shot at beating them. Ireland very nearly beat them, and I think we'd have beaten Ireland. Hindsight's 2020, maybe it's wishful thinking now that everything's gone by, but I think there's 4 teams in those quarterfinals we'd have beaten. I think we'd have beaten Australia, would have beaten Ireland, would have beaten South Africa, and we might have had a shot at beating France. So with the right sort of development on from Brian leaving, and depending which coaches come in and how these contracts get distributed and how they get used, I would be looking at, we've got France at the Hive in the Six Nations, and they've not looked their most convinced in this World Cup. We've looked like we've made a massive step forward. Can we beat everyone except England in the Six Nations next year? I think it's our best chance in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, we've got the WXV coming up. 12
for
teams.
The final time.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're in the top tier. 12 teams playing home and away, touring between September and October 2026. That'll be a real interesting one, Alan.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really good things, is that we've got the opportunity now for more top class competition for our international side, for our international women's side, and that can only be a good thing. I think getting out and playing more against the best teams, I think that's how you get better. So we have an opportunity to kick on.
Yeah, absolutely. And any predictions from you guys? How do you think we'll do in the WXV and also in the Six Nations next year?
I think WXV, we should be aiming to be in the top half. I think, and obviously a lot of it depends on who's playing who, where, and when. I don't think that we go to Paris and win. I don't think we go to Sydney or Melbourne or whatever and win. I think that'll be a much more difficult ask than to beat them, to knock them off once in a World Cup tournament. But if we get the right fixtures, I don't think there's anything to stop us from being top half in WXV. And we should be top half in the Six Nations. Yeah,
and Alan, you think we'll take in Ireland and take a Wales in the Six Nations?
I think it's going to be difficult not to take Wales. I think Wales are probably going to go through their Matt Williams years in terms in both men and women's rugby. I think it's going to be slim pickings in Wales, despite how much they love the game. Ireland are on the up in some ways. The forwards are looking good, etc. but I still think I think we should be aiming to target to beating Ireland. We should be, I think if we're not looking to beat teams, then this is a team that we should be thinking could take anyone on their day.
It says quite a lot about Ireland and Scotland at the moment that's the game that Ireland have put in the Aviva next year. That is their big game in the Women's Six Nations this year. So I think they'll be coming fully loaded for that. I think it'll be interesting. But I think you're right. I think as long as we don't torpedo our own development in the next 6 months, which there is all sorts of potential to do, depending on how coaching and contracts go, we should be looking at that Six Nations and I think outside the Red Roses saying we could take any of these teams.
I think it might be a nice pod journey to go and watch Scotland, Ireland, and Dublin. I think we could enjoy that.
I already looked, and I can't remember why I couldn't go, but I couldn't. Oh, it kicks off at like 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. I think that's what I can.
Okay. So who are you going to say, Alan?
No, I mean I'm now just checking flights to Dublin. 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, at that we'll finish up for the free to air part of the pod, and we'll move on to Patreon. If you've liked what you've heard and you want to hear more, we're going to go on and talk about Glasgow and Edinburgh getting ready for the URC start this weekend. You can go to, I think it's www.patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, I think it is, and you can become a Patreon member and you'll get access to more of us blethering about rugby. But thank you so much. Sorry, what are you going to say, Johnny?
I was just going to say this is such pre-season form, like we can't even remember the Patreon address. So happens. And Craig, me and you are both well known for not being particularly enamoured of pre-season. So we've basically just turned up the week of the first game, completely half-cooked. Done nothing all summer.
Nothing at all. No conditioning whatsoever. We've just turned up to see how I get on and see how we get on. But
listen, 4 pints and a takeaway every night is prop conditioning.
Certainly is. I tell you, one thing I would say is Manson Jr. It was announced the other day that Manson Jr.'s new performance coach at Stirling is the one, the only, most beautiful prop in the world, Alan Dell. I'm so jealous, I can't believe it.
Does the restraining order mean you can't go and watch Manson Jr. play?
I can't go to Stirling County to watch him play down there in case I bump into WP Nell, and then I can't go. There's also Alan Dell as well. My goodness, it's just going to be terrible. Anyway, we will leave it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Jonny and thanks to Alan for joining me on the pod. And if there's, as I say, if you like what we're doing and want to join us in the Patreon side of things, please have a look on Patreon's website and you can join us then. Thank you so much. Have a great night and enjoy the weekend's rugby.
Bye all.
Bye.
If the sound of Alan pouring yet another whiskey doesn't convince people to come and join the Patreon, nothing will.
Here, that's my third. Behave.
Three more than I've had.
Listen, just because you're all grown up and you can eat your dinner in a white shirt with